All right, I'm going to do a video of each of the constructions that we've done so far, and I'm going to give one example of each of the constructions that are on this geometric construction notes. I'm just going to do it one time. Notice that down each column are very detailed directions on how to do that particular construction. So I'm going to go through and do it once, and I'm going to go what might be kind of fast, but remember, you can pause and go back and look at it again if you need to. So let's start with doing a congruent segment. So step one in this one is to draw a line that is at least as long as the line that I'm going to copy. Then I take my compass and I set one end at one end of the segment. I set my other end at the end of the segment. I try to line up the hole so that it's right on the other end. Then I go down to the line that I drew and I mark out that length on that line. Whoops. That line. Okay, and if I want to, I can just erase what's left on there, but that's what I should have when I'm done. All right, second one. All right, so this is a segment bisector or a perpendicular bisector. All right, use one down a little bit lower so that I don't get hung up by my stapler. Okay, so the key here is I start at one end. I make sure my slider is more than halfway. All right, from there, I do an arc on both sides of the line, above and below. Then I go to the other end, and I do the same thing. All right, that gives me X's above and below the line. Now, if I'm just finding the midpoint, then all I need to do is line up those X's and mark where the midpoint is. If I'm actually doing a perpendicular bisector, I'm just going to draw the line through those two X's, and notice it goes right through that midpoint. Third one, a congruent angle. Okay, so this is copying an angle. All right, and do that one right there. Okay, step one is to just draw the bottom part of the angle. All right, we're just drawing a straight line. It's going to end up being that bottom side of the angle. Then I'm going to draw an arc on my original and on my place where I'm copying the angle to. It needs to be the same arc, so you need to make sure that your compass doesn't slide while you're doing these two arcs. Okay, so now I've copied that arc down to there. Then I'm going to measure from the two places where the arc meets the angle. So one end point on one, and the pencil hole on the other side. Okay, and then I just drop down here, line up that X, and draw an arc through to get this point. That tells me where the other side of the angle needs to go through. So I just line up my X with the vertex of my angle and draw the line. Okay, that angle is copied from that one. Okay, angle bisector. So here we're cutting an angle in half. All right, step one is to draw an arc. I don't have to draw the whole arc. I could just mark the two places where it crosses through the angle, but the important thing is that I need to get those 2 points, and those 2 points are the same distance away from the vertex of the angle. Then I just go to each of those 2 points. If I want, I can move my slider out. I may have to. In this case, I didn't have to. I like moving it out further because then I think I can just see a little bit easier. The further away, the easier it is to see if you've made a mistake. Okay, and then I line up the vertex of my angle with the X, and that should cut right halfway through. All right, a line perpendicular to a line through a point on the line. So we're going to try to draw a line that goes perpendicularly through this point. All right, this one, step one is to find 2 points that are the same distance away from the point that I'm trying to go through. There's one mark. I'll mark the same distance away. So now those 2 marks should be the same distance away from this point. Now I'm going to do the same procedure that I did back when I wanted to find a perpendicular bisector, or to just bisect a segment. Okay, go to this point. I'm going to have to slide my slider out so that it's more than halfway. I'm going to draw an arc above and below, and same thing on this side. An arc above and below. And then if I did this right, both of those X's should line up perfectly with that spot, and when I draw through, I get a perpendicular line through that point. Okay, now you'll notice in the directions over here, they only did one on one side. And technically that's fine, because even if I just did this X up here, I could line up that X with the point. I still like doing both of those because it helps me see if I screwed up. If those 3 things don't line up, it tells me something screwed up. If I only do this one and say it ends up over here, I'm probably going to notice that I screwed up, but if it's a little bit off, it could be not quite enough to let me know that I really screwed up. That's why I like to do both of those. All right, 6th one. Line perpendicular to a line through a point not on the line. All right, for this one, step 1 is to put the end of the compass on the dot on the point that we're trying to go through. And then I need to put my slider so that it's down past the line. Okay, I arc there and arc there. Okay, so notice that gives me 2 points, right there and right there. Then I go to each of those 2 points. I can move my slider out. I don't have to, but again, I like when my X's are a little further away because it just helps me make sure everything looks right at the end. All right, and you can see there's my X. Line up my X with my point. Through, perpendicular. Okay, now, here's a good example where it doesn't quite look exactly right. So I'm going to check my work again. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. It looks like this arc, there we go, that arc was a little off. And that one's not quite the same. Okay, so this is good. I'm glad this happened on the video because then it gives you a chance to see that sometimes you mess up. And it's okay, it's not a big deal because you can always fix it. Okay, a little bit better. This was where my X was. Okay? All right. Last one. Okay. Now, this is the only one where I'm going to show you a procedure that's a little bit different than goes down this left-hand side. These steps, the ones on the left-hand side, they still work. Okay? You can do those. What it involves for that one is copying the angle that we start with, copying this angle up to here. Okay, so it's the same steps as copying an angle. You certainly can do that. It definitely works. I'm going to show you another procedure that I think is a little bit easier. All right, step 1 is you draw a line through the point and through the line. It can be anywhere. It doesn't matter where. as long as it goes through the point and through the line. All right, now this part is important. You have to set your compass to be the same length as the point is away from the point where the two lines cross. Okay, so we put one end right there where the two lines cross. We put the other end on the point. Now we leave our compass the same. We don't change the slider from that point. We mark there. That gives us 2 points. We go to each of those 2 points. We draw an arc and another arc. Okay, that gives us an X out here. All we have to do then is connect the dot with our X. Whoops. Didn't quite go through the X. A little higher. That's a little bit better. Okay? So that's a parallel line through a point not on the line. Now the reason that one works is because we set our compass to this length, so that and that had to be the same length, and then this and this had to be the same length. So in here we have this four-sided figure and all the sides are the same. We'll learn later when we cover quadrilaterals that that's called a rhombus, and a rhombus is a parallelogram, so that's how we know that this side and this side have to be parallel to each other. Okay, so again, all those examples are on there. You can feel free to jump forward and backward in this video to the point where you need to see a construction, and then also recognize that the steps for all these are right down the left-hand side. And I will see you next week.